Alright, Steelers fans, get ready, because today's news is different, and it's sure to surprise everyone. First, rumors surfaced that Rodgers might return to play in Chicago, and you know what that means. Then, a sudden update on his wrist injury left fans apprehensive or on edge. And just when things couldn't get any stranger, guess who's being mentioned again behind the scenes in Pittsburgh? That's right, an old acquaintance who didn't please many. There's a lot to analyze, so let's start with the first piece of news that's already causing a stir. Here we go. The Steelers are gearing up for Week 12 against the Bears, and guess who's right in the middle of it all? Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, the guy who's made a career out of torching Chicago might be suiting up once again, this time in black and gold. And even though he's still dealing with that banged up wrist, it sounds like he's itching to get back on the field, especially in the Windy City. Let's be real, Rodgers lives for playing against the Bears. Dude's record speaks for itself. 24 wins and just 5 losses in the regular season against Chicago, and a playoff W just to rub it in. That's nearly 2 decades of heartbreak for Bears fans. Remember when he flat out said he owns them during a touchdown celebration? Yeah, he wasn't kidding. Now he's wearing a Steelers jersey, but when he spoke to the media on Wednesday, it was clear that fire to play in Chicago is still burning. There's incentive for every opponent, Rodgers said, but I've enjoyed many Sundays, Mondays, maybe even Thursdays in that city. Great fans, great atmosphere, just a great place to play. Sounds respectful, right? Wait for it. He followed it up with a comment about not wanting to be the villain this time around. I'd rather not be, he said. I mean, I'm not in Green Bay anymore. Maybe we can let bygones be bygones. I guess. Classic Rodgers, charming, smirking, and slightly trolling at the same time. He walked through the history of that Bears-Packers rivalry, and then just casually asked Chicago fans to forgive and forget. I hope those fans can put my success behind them. I'm sure they can't, he said, laughing. I don't expect them to, but I really enjoy the city. Translation, he knows they hate him, and he loves every second of it. But let's not forget, there's a real game to be played. Pittsburgh hasn't won in Chicago since 1995, which is wild. So this matchup isn't just about Rodgers versus Bears. It's about breaking a nearly 30-year curse on the road. And whether it's Mason Rudolph under center or Rodgers himself, the Steelers cannot afford to drop this one. They're 6-4, Chicago is 7-3, and on the rise under coach Ben Johnson. This ain't the old NFC North days anymore. These Bears are a real threat. If Rodgers does play, he could flip the script and remind Chicago who still runs things. Of course, that all depends on whether the Steelers medical team clears him, but if you think Rodgers is just gonna sit back and play it safe, you haven't been paying attention. And just when it looked like Rodgers might actually pull it off, a fresh injury update dropped and threw everything into question again. So here's the twist. Rodgers might want to play, but his left wrist isn't exactly on board. After tweaking it last week against the Bengals, he had to sit out the second half. That raised all kinds of alarms, especially with a huge game against the Bears coming up. Steelers fans started asking, is he even gonna be cleared? Should he push through? Is this deja vu all over again? Rodgers met with the media on Wednesday, and as always, he gave just enough to keep everyone guessing. A lot of rehab, he said, kind of shrugging it off. Thankful to get today to work on it. I'll try to be back on the field tomorrow. We'll see what happens. That's the kind of I might play, I might not answer that drives fans crazy. But here's the thing, he wants to play, bad. And when asked if pain alone could keep him out, no, it would be a safety thing. So the issue isn't discomfort, it's whether the medical team thinks it's smart or risky for him to go back out there. Apparently Rodgers even tried to return during the Bengals game, but the staff shut that idea down real quick. Safety protocol, you know the drill. Still, Rodgers made it clear if it were up to him, he'd already be suiting up. And that's where things get tricky, because this isn't a throwaway game. The Bears are on fire this season, and beating them would be huge for Pittsburgh's playoff push. Rodgers knows that. He's got a history with Chicago, and if there's a chance to play and maybe own them one more time, you better believe he wants it. But here's the flip side. If he rushes back and gets hurt worse, then what? The season could spiral. And let's not forget, the guy's not 25 anymore. He's got a lot of mileage on him. The team has to balance short-term hype with long-term reality. So now everyone's watching practice reports, waiting for that one line. Rodgers, full participant. Until then, it's a guessing game. But while everyone's eyes are locked on Rodgers, there's a whole other quarterback storyline bubbling up behind the scenes, and it involves a familiar face. Here's the curveball nobody saw coming. Justin Fields might actually find his way back to Pittsburgh. Yeah, seriously. Since Big Ben hung up the cleats in 2021, the Steelers have been on a wild ride at quarterback. It's been a patchwork of hopeful experiments, none of them sticking. Fields was part of that shuffle not long ago, showed some flashes in 2024, and then walked in free agency to sign with the Jets for a cool $40 million over 2 years. That move? Not aging well. Fast forward to now, Fields has been benched in New York. The Jets are eating that contract and likely already looking for the exit. Paying a backup QB $30 million in 2026? Yeah, not happening. Here's where things get spicy. In a recent fan Q&A, Steelers insider Jerry Dulac didn't shut down the idea of a reunion. Actually, he hinted that Arthur Smith, Pittsburgh's offensive coordinator, likes Fields. That's the type of quote that gets front offices buzzing. Anything is possible, Dulac wrote. Arthur Smith likes him. Boom, door cracked open. Now, would Fields come back as a starter? Probably not. He'd be entering a chaotic QB room with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard both under contract through 2026. The only way Fields starts is if Rodgers retires and the front office decides he's worth another shot. It's messy, but it's Steelers QB messy, and we've seen that story on loop for years now. Oh, and don't forget, Arthur Smith might be interviewing for head coaching jobs at the end of the season, so if he's the one driving this Fields talk, it might not even matter if he's gone come January. Man, if Rodgers plays, if that wrist holds up, and if Fields actually comes back, this QB situation's about to get wild. Do you trust this plan? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's next for the Steelers.